We recently got a new article from Game Informer, which was an interview with game director Naoki Hamaguchi himself. So we're going to be watching this, seeing what he's got to say.
Are you a good sport?
まあケースバイケースかな。
What's the best remake in gaming history?
リメイクFF7 リメイクです。
Why did you want to change certain story details with Final Fantasy VII Remake series?
原作を知っているユーザーにも楽しんでもらうため。
So this is actually pretty quick. It's 16 minutes, but pretty quick, but we'll watch it. Let's see what he says. There's got to be some good stuff in here.
Do these changes make this a multiverse story?
それはお答えできないですね。
What's the best
Okay. So far, these are good questions.
それはお答えできないですね。
What's the best multiverse piece of media?
スパイダーマンは素晴らしいですね。
What was that thing in Remake that kept trying to keep the story elements the same called?
ウィスパー。
What were the things in the Final Fantasy VII Remake that kept trying to keep the story the same?
ウィスパー。
What does it mean now that the whispers are gone?
それはリバースをお楽しみにしてください。
Does it at least mean that catching a chocobo is easier this time around?
人によるかもしれないですね、そこは。
Are all chocobos the same in Rebirth?
チョコボによっての
From what we see, based off the demo that we saw during the event in Japan, it looks easier. I don't know if catching all chocobos will be like that, because it appears like chocobo breeding is gone. We're just going to be capturing different colored chocobos, I'd imagine.
能力は異なります。
What kinds of abilities can chocobos have?
はい、空を飛べたり、山を登ったり、海を登ったり、さまざまな能力があります。
Do all the chocobos smell the same?
私は似ていると思っていますね。
Do they smell pretty bad?
馬に近いと私は思っています。
How faithfully does the story of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth follow the original?
大きい意味では非常に忠実になぞっていると思います。
In a
How is
bigger picture, I do believe it follows it quite faithfully. I think it's an interesting choice of words, but anyways, let's continue.
How is Zack still around?
難しい質問ですね。
Yeah, he's not gonna answer that. Yeah, the same thing, right? Multiverse. He's not gonna answer that.
どうやって生きているんでしょうかね。
How does Zack being around affect Cloud?
そうですね。クラウドというより、この FF7 の世界全体に対してザックスを通していろんな問いかけをしています。
Why isn't Crisis Core Reunion part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake canon?
リメイク自体は他の今のコンピレーションしている作品とは違う独立した世界設定で。
Okay, that makes sense, right? Because with what's going on in the remake in the canon version of Crisis Core Reunion, Zack dies, but now Zack is alive, so that's why it's unrelated. That makes sense.
描いているからです。
Do you think people would still benefit from playing Crisis Core Reunion in order to learn more about Zack?
Of course.
You ever just listen to Final Fantasy music?
はい、もちろんあります。学生の頃マイバイブルでした。バイブルって言わないのかな。なんて言うんだろう。学生の頃サウンドトラックがよく使っていましたね。
What's the best Final Fantasy soundtrack?
もう FF7 のサウンドトラックをものすごくよく聞いてました。
How does the remake series being split across multiple games affect the overall experience?
やっぱり FF7 の非常に大きい
Be able to stay loyal and really depict the
ちゃん
variation.
と忠実に表現
Yeah, and I think that's been clear with remake, like really exploring Midgar and seeing more firsthand all the events that take place there kind of gives it a more immersive experience. I feel like it's going to feel the exact same way with how Rebirth will be. The events that are going to take place over the course of Rebirth.
できるというところが一番のメリットだと思います。
What is the best direct sequel in Final Fantasy history?
私が関わったライトニングリターンズファイナルファンタジ
I
ー
still haven't played 13.
とてもいい作品だと思っています。
Did Final Fantasy VII Rebirth really need to be on multiple discs, or did you just do that for nostalgia?
両方ですね。
Were there any other games in the Final Fantasy series that the team considered to remake before settling on 7?
北瀬は検討していたと思います。
Do you think we'll ever get Final Fantasy X?
Again, something he can't give more information about, be spoilers, because nothing's been announced. Maybe I'd imagine after this year, like the next thing will be announced.
3?
Sorry, after Rebirth later this year, the next thing will be announced.
私もプレイしてみたいですね。
Can you do your best Tidus laugh?
やっぱりティーダどう笑ったっけ？ティーダどう笑う？
Ah, ha, ha.
I can bring it up if we want to do.
こんな笑ってたっけ？
That's classic.
What's the silliest moment in Final Fantasy history?
ファイナルファンタジー6のケフカはすごく私の中で好きなキャラクターですね。面白おかしいキャラクターとして。
What's your favorite moment from the original Final Fantasy VII?
一番こう記憶に残ってるのはやっぱりこうエアリ
Of course, like I feel like it's this or maybe Nibelheim
スのワスラルルミア
flashback.
ですね。
Pretty
What
iconic.
was your favorite moment in Final Fantasy VII Remake?
コルネオの闘技場でヘルハウスがこうボスとして出てきたところは一番好きです。
How does Red 13 ride a chocobo?
肉球でがっちりロープを掴んで
Will we see Red 13 trying to stand on two legs again?
多分皆さんの期待にお答えできると思いますね。
Does anyone in the party comment how weird it is that he tries to ride chocobos and stand on two legs?
パーティーいや自然と馴染んでますね。
What happens if Red 13
So some of his answers, I don't know if he's just trying to like do his best to dodge it because he doesn't want to answer. He doesn't want to give spoilers, right? Or I don't know if it's just his way of genuinely answering it. Probably a little bit of both, to be honest.
13's tail gets extinguished?
Is he like Charmander?
尽きるんですかね。
Who on the Super Smash Bros. Roster did Cloud get along with the best?
マリオ、
Who do you think annoyed him the most?
ドンキーコング、
How many times did he tell Mario that he
Good
was a
answers.
soldier?
7回。
Did Sephiroth get along with anybody on Smash Bros.?
セフィロスはもちろんクラウドと仲がいいと思っていました。
What's the wilder crossover? Super Smash Bros. or Kingdom Hearts?
もちろんキングダムハーツです。私ディズニー大好きです。
What's the best summon in Final Fantasy history?
Ooh,
私ファイナ
yeah. Bahamut Zero is
ゼロ
badass.
ゼロだっけ？ゼロでいいんだっけ？ゼロでいいんだっけ？あれってカイって言うんだっけ？なんか子供心に感じに憧れてたのをすごく記憶に残っています。
What's the best Sid in Final Fantasy history?
私
Ooh.
FF12 のアルシドはちょっと
I think 12 is going to be the next Final Fantasy I play through. Or that, or I need to finish 6 to be fair. One of those two.
指導を少しもじりつつすごく独特なキャラクターで好きでし
Have you ever bought flowers from someone on the street?
た。ないですね。
Do you guys have any black materia around here?
あります。
If you could have any materia to use in your daily life, what would you choose?
見破るマテリア。
Why?
Actually, it's pretty smart. I'm not going to lie. Assess materia, if you could just find information out on people, like that's
やっぱり私いろんな人と関わるんでいろんな人のいい点いろんな情報を知れるのは魅力的です。インタビューもきっとうまく答えれます。
So you trying to find out my HP?
まあ、イエス。その通りです。
Should I be worried?
いやいやものすごい HP が高くてこれはなかなか手強いなと思ってます。
If you could speak to the planet, what would you say?
日本は地震が多いんで地震をやめてほしいですね。
What is your promised land?
私やっぱりこう
Fair
ゲ
enough.
ームクリエイターなんでやっぱりこう皆さんの記憶に残るような作品を作れる
it's a good interview.
を目指したいというかそこが目指す地ですかね。
What's your favorite part of Tokyo?
品川私好きです。
What's your favorite place to travel to?
まあ、日本だと北海道とかこう海鮮物が美味しいので私好きですね。
What other Final Fantasy game was the biggest inspiration for the remake series?
やっぱ直近自分がやってた「ファイナルファンタジー13」とかはやっぱり自分も関わってたから何かしらインスピレーションしたものはあるのか
Fair
な
enough.
と
A 3-part? Yeah, 3
How
different
much product does
games.
Cloud use in his hair?
3分の1ぐらいは使わないと硬さにはならないですよね。
Which Final Fantasy character has the best hair?
まあやっぱ男らしかバレットの髪型はもうすっきりしてて好きです。
Was Lightning in Final Fantasy 13 inspired by Cloud from Final Fantasy 7?
どうなんだろう。でもおそらく そこはキャラクターなので野村さんがデザインしてるんですけど、多分そこに対してのつながりはないと思う。
Does Cloud realize that his last name is kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy?
クラウド自体は気づいてないはずですね。開発側のメッセージはもちろんありますけど。
Alright, let's be honest. Who is the coolest Final Fantasy protagonist?
セッツァーです。
What's the deal with Final Fantasy characters
Who is Setzer? Okay. Maybe I should finish 6. Cool. Okay.
always losing their memories?
まあドラマチック、ドラマ性だからですかね。
Hold
Which
on.
character?
セッツァーです。
What's the deal with Final Fantasy characters always losing their memories?
That's a
まあ
good
ドラマチ
question.
ック、ドラマ性だからですかね。
Why is that?
Which character is the most different between Final Fantasy VII Original and Final Fantasy VII Remake series?
一番は
Ooh.
ザックスじゃないですかね。
If all the Final Fantasy villains
Fair enough, because in Final Fantasy VII, he's dead. And in the remake trilogy, he's alive. Fair enough. That's a good answer.
fought each other, who would come out on top?
ここは私が今リメイクをやってるので、セフィロスでやってほしい。
Oh no, what is this answer? What does that mean? Like, not that that's a bad answer, but it, like... Hold on.
If all the Final Fantasy villains fought each other, who would come out on top?
Oh, never mind. Okay, thank God. Okay, I totally misheard his question. Never mind. Okay. Never mind. Alright.
ここは私が今リメイクをやってるので、セフィロスでやってほしいですね。
Do we get to play as Sephiroth in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth?
そうですね。これプレイヤブルで操作できます。
We already know that.
Have you heard stories about Final Fantasy VII originally being developed for Nintendo 64?
どうなんだろう。私はわからないです。
Okay, well, even that aside, how many cartridges do you think it would take to fit Final Fantasy VII's original game on the N64?
64個じゃないですか。
Do you think mainline Final Fantasy games will ever return to Nintendo consoles?
わからないですけど、それもまた魅力的な話ですね。
Does Barrett have a difficult time getting through security at the airport?
いや、クラウドも含めて通れないですね、2人とも。
Coming into the remake series, what was the biggest change the team wanted to make?
なんか一番はゲームをアクションにしたいっていうところですね。
Is Rebirth more open than Remake?
はい、間違いないです。
Is Rebirth's map bigger than Remake's?
100%.
リメイクのワールドマップはもうこんなぐらいになってると思います。
Are the side quests better in Rebirth?
そうですね。非常にどのリメイクからもそうですし、他の
I think the side quests in Remake were actually... They were solid. I don't think they were fantastic, but I don't think they're bad. I think they're fine. I'm really thinking about that now. I think they were alright. I don't think they're anything special, but I don't think they were bad. I think they were solid. So I think it's easy for the bar to go up on that.
どのタイトルに比べても非常によく作り込まれていると思っています。
Why such a focus on side content this time around?
やっぱりワールドマップの体験を原作同様にさせたかったっていうのがあります。
What does Biggs and Wedge still being alive mean for the story?
そうですね。今作はやっぱりいろんなレイヤーが絡み合う展開になっているので、そういった意味でもその点は楽しんでもらいたいところではあります。
Did Jesse make it out of Final Fantasy VII Remake alive?
私もそう願ってますけどどうでしょう。
Of course, he's not gonna give us any of these answers, but
Would you ever go to a restaurant called Sector 7?
Yes.
Just be careful ordering anything that comes on a plate.
気をつけます。
But I assume you would go to a bar called Seventh Heaven.
もちろんコスモキャニオンを頼みます。
Have you ever seen the show Seventh Heaven?
わからないですね。
Have you ever considered putting a secret pinball elevator in the office?
いや、面白いですね。ボタンを押したら出てくる。面白い。
Do you have a favorite arcade machine?
私 UFO キャッチャー大好きです。
What's cooler, riding a motorcycle or snowboarding?
スノーボードですかね。
Does Final Fantasy VII Rebirth have snowboarding?
リバースではスノーボードはないです。
okay. So I saw this got mentioned online. I haven't seen this, but I did see that this got mentioned online and people are freaking out. Keep in mind that the snowboarding event takes place after the Forgotten Capital. That doesn't mean it won't be in the series at all. It's just not in Rebirth. So Honestly, I'll be honest, I don't know if the game really needs it. Like, it is kind of crazy when you think about, like, in the original, Aerith gets stabbed and she dies, and then, like, 10 minutes later, you're snowboarding down a mountain. It's just kind of like, it's just interesting. So, I honestly don't know. Like, if there is no snowboarding, I would not be upset. But that does confirm that it won't be in Rebirth, possibly in part 3. So,
Gold saucer in Rebirth?
もちろんあります。
Can you play the mini riding a motorcycle or snowboarding?
スノーボードですかね。
Does Final Fantasy VII Rebirth have snowboarding?
リバースではスノーボードはないです。
Is Gold saucer in Rebirth?
もちろんあります。
Can you play the mini game?
okay, already. I wonder how long ago they did this.
もちろんたくさん用意されます。されてます。
What's the best mini game in Rebirth?
本当にたくさんミニゲームあるんで、どれもしっかり作ってるんですけど。
I'm excited for Queen's Blood.
Which mini game from the original Final Fantasy VII received the biggest change for Rebirth?
まあ、チョコボレースはやっぱり今風のレーシングゲーム
Yeah.
しっかりと
From what we've seen, the Chocobo racing looks a lot different, but it looks good.
作り変えているので、そこは原作からだいぶ変わっていると思いますね。
Is the CPR mini game still in Rebirth?
あそこはこうちょっと表現を変えているので、
Interesting.
してください。
Does your save data from Remake transfer into Rebirth?
直接的には引き継がないですけど、実は一部で引き継ぐところもあったりします。
I've purposely kept my remake save file just in case, without knowing, and it's like 60, 70 gigs sitting on my hard drive just for Rebirth, both on there. So,
Just how safe can Sephiroth get?
セフィロスはこうなんだ
I guess you could say he gets pretty safer, you know? Anyway, sorry.
かんだ言ってクラウドのこと大好きなんで、結果として常に安全なのかもしれないですね。
I think a certain party member might disagree.
パーティーメンバー
Aerith.
ああ、そういうことか。Yes.
Which mainline Final Fantasy game has the best combat system?
はい、やっぱりファイナルファンタジー7リメイクのバトルシステムは非常に自信を持って送れるものになっていると思います。
I'm actually gonna say 16. 16 just does aerial combat and combos and stuff way better than Remake does. But I think with the changes Rebirth is gonna have, Rebirth will probably be better now.
Do you have a favorite fake rumor about the original Final Fantasy VII?
エアリスがなんか生き返るみたいなのはまさによく聞いていましたね。
If you could change your name to any Final Fantasy characters, what would you choose?
ナナキ。
Were you aware that Genova Chen from that game company changed his name to Genova because of Final Fantasy VII?
知らない。そうなんだ。
Would you ever remake Advent Children?
見てみたいですね、確かに。
Were you aware that the Marvel's director Nia DaCosta used Final Fantasy VII Advent Children as her pitch for the movie?
はい、ニュースになってるの見ました。
I
Name
did
an
not know
emotion.
that.
熱量、
Name a random object.
マウス、
Give me a descriptive word.
美しい、
Name a Square Enix franchise.
クロノトリガー、
What's the strangest game title
Good
Square
answer.
Enix has ever come up with?
レーシングラグーン。
Can you think of a game name that was rejected?
それは言えないです。
What if we just made up our own title?
何に対して
Yeah, we already did it actually. How does Chrono Trigger Beautiful Passionate Mouse?
そうですね、集英社さんから怒られそうですね。
What is the third game in the remake series called?
それは野村さんの頭の中にしかないですね。
But if I guess it, you'll tell me, right?
それはお答えできないです。
We know it starts with an R. That's it.
Reimagine?
いまいちかと。
Reframed?
それもなんかしっくりこないですね。
Reloaded?
なんか聞いたことあるような。
Returns?
まだしっくりこないですね。
Cloud Returns?
それでいいかもしれないですね。
Aerith Returns?
なんかすごいメッセージ性が込められてますね。
Lightning Returns?
そうしましょ
So not Record Keeper.
う。この時はダメですね。
Revengeance?
リベンジャーズなんかどんどんなんか倫理から怒られそうな感じなの。
What's the deal with guns in Final Fantasy? Sometimes they kill someone, other times they just take down a little bit of HP.
あれ私も知りたいんですよね。
What was the biggest point of debate within the team when making Final Fantasy VII Remake?
やっぱりこうどこまでこだわってこう表現を上げるかっていうところはやっぱ議論に
Makes sense.
Was there an idea for Remake that was scrapped?
How much our areas can be fleshed out. What's one thing that's interesting to think about too is with Rebirth, what new content are we gonna get, right? So the incident where you're going to Jesse's house, the motorcycle ride, Roche, all of that. You know, we have not seen Roche at all in Rebirth. Now that I think about it, so, and it's clear that I'm trying to. I don't think they would just completely drop him, but it's clear he has some sort of role, right? He's a soldier or a former soldier. So I'm curious to see what completely new things we're gonna get in Rebirth as well. It's clear that there's already been some changes, like how the boat is. It's more like a cruise ship rather than like a freight Shinra freight boat. I don't know, whatever the hell you want to call it. You know, going from Junon over to Costa del Sol. So I'm curious to see what like actual new things that like things like Jesse's house and that reactor are just completely added into the game in Rebirth.
Scrapped because it strayed too far from the original?
その予定はよくありますね。
How do you pronounce this character's name?
ゲットシー。
What was up with their cameo in Remake?
まああれはこうファンサービスの意味もすごく強いと思います。
Yeah.
What's the best RPG series outside of Final Fantasy?
私はウィッチャーシリーズが好きです。
Why did Final Fantasy VI resonate with you so much?
まあやっぱりこう中学生とかだったんで、自分でゲーム体験実際に体験できるファンタジーみたいなものってやっぱりその当時なかったので非常に衝撃的でしたね。
Is that one still your favorite?
やっぱり心に残ってる作品ですね。
Do you think that most people's favorite Final Fantasy game is the one that got them into the series in the first place?
かもしれないですね。なんかその割合は高い気はしますね。
What is the biggest improvement from Remake to Rebirth?
まあやっぱりユーザーが自らこう選択できるゲーム体験っていうところが非常に変わっていると思います。
How do you think people are going to react to that scene? You know the one. How much of Rebirth was developed in parallel with Remake?
開発自体は同時じゃなくこうすぐスワップしてるんですけど、シナリオは同時じゃなくこう
Developed in parallel with Remake. How much of Rebirth was developed in parallel with Remake?
開発自体は同時じゃなくこうすぐスワップしてるんですけど、シナリオは野島さんの方に並行しても書いてもらっていました。
Did you ever just consider calling it Remake 2, or is that just too simple?
そこはなかったですね。
What do you think the series would have been called if it wasn't Hironobu Sakaguchi's final attempt?
マコ。
Will there ever truly be a Final Fantasy?
難しい質問だな。それはわからないけど、もうこの質問がファイナルでいいんじゃないでしょうかね。
Perfect. Thank you so much.
大丈夫でしたか?
That was good. So, despite the fact that we didn't really get too much information, I do want to say that no answer actually is in fact an answer, right? So that's just one thing to keep in mind, right? Is no answer is in fact an answer. So granted, we don't get any new information here, but some of those answers to those questions is pretty informative and tells us, you know, what we can expect. I'm assuming we're just waiting for this final trailer here. Wonder if they're going to show. I actually had forgotten about Roche, and I'm just wondering, like, when are we going to see him? So that'll be interesting to see. We are just over a month out, a month, 9 days away. So that is going to be it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Any more content regarding Final Fantasy VII, you can find it here on the channel. So if you can, please like, subscribe for more content on that. Without further ado, though, that's going to be it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace and deuces. See ya.